Hello, welcome to Chapter 3 Podcast, the show for readers of science fiction, fantasy, and romance. This is Season 2, Episode 5. Today, in honor of the holiday season, I'm joined by Leanna and special guest Alan from the Library of Allenxandria to talk about Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. This is his Discworld version of a Christmas book, so seemed appropriate for the season. Should be fun. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, we'd appreciate if you take a moment to rate and review us so we can continue to reach more listeners. And if you're interested in getting early access to episodes as well as exclusive bonus content with every episode, consider supporting us on Patreon. Huge thanks to all of our supporting patrons who make this possible, including our world-expanding patron, Trina. You all are amazing. Alan, thank you for joining us to talk about Hogfather.
Thank you for having me, because I love this book. Now, people are going to expect me, and I forgot it's me and Leanna here, and people literally tune in so that we will yell at each other.
It's true.
You can surprise them by being nice to me.
So I had like a not fully fleshed out idea for bonus content where I was like, I wonder if I could look up a list of like questions for marriage counseling.
Oh my God. Hogfather is an amazing book.
We're going to talk about Hogfather. It is good. And this is the second time we've had you on talking about Discworld.
Yes. This was my first Discworld novel. This is the copy
Me
that I have from high school. I have this. This is my copy from 11th grade. I had some friends, and at the lunch table, they were like drama nerds or whatever. And they're like, dude, you should read this. And I'm like, why would I read a book called Hogfather? They're like, it's the Grim Reaper as Santa Claus. And also it's funny. And I'm like, give me that. And so I read it. And I was like, this is funny. And I have no idea what is happening in this book. What is this teeth palace? What is going on? But it was funny and it was smart. And I caught some of the references. And then I read all of Terry Pratchett's bibliography. And when I went back and read this, when I got to it, because I started at the beginning, and then when I got to Hogfather again, I read it again. And I'm like, I understand more of what is happening. And then when I read it again, I was older, and I'm like, I understand more of the references because I know more things. So I love Hogfather. It's still one of my faves.
I might definitely think that it's like Nightmare Before Christmas, except brilliant.
Yes. It's like Nightmare Before Christmas with an actual denouement.
Like the only thing that Nightmare Before Christmas has over this is like Danny Elfman singing, which is like a treat at all times. But otherwise, Hogfather's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is only my second Discworld book. The first one was when I had read Guards, and I like this better than Guards.
It's later on. Pratchett has hit his this is like his 20th Discworld novel.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. He had hit his stride. The later watch books are better than Guards. I rate Guards highly because of the nostalgia factor.
No doubt.
But Night Watch is brilliant.
Leanna's face.
It's still 5 stars, Leanna. It's just not as 5 stars as Hogfather. But I mean, again, I don't know. Like I like Commander Vimes, so I'm gonna like anything that has Commander Vimes in it. But yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I understand when people like Hogfather better. I completely understand.
Well, I think, and maybe we can talk about like people's feelings on it. I think the thing that I liked about this is it had like the humor and wordplay stuff, but it also had like bigger ideas it was playing with in a way that I don't think Guards really did.
That is another symptom of later Pratchett books. The Guards I just finished for the first time. I read a Discworld book for the first time last week. My first Discworld book in 20 years that I read that I hadn't read before. And it was the Last City Watch book. And the arc of that narrative, it goes from being, humorous, but there's not, what really big ideas are in Guards? Don't summon a dragon, right? Yeah. To Men-at-Arms, which is still funny, deals with racism. Feet of Clay, which is still a little funny, but deals with, what is slavery? What is alive? What does it mean to be alive? And then we go to Jingo, which is funny and talking about foreign war. And then we hit a point to where they stop really being funny and start being more about what you're talking about, these larger thematic things.
So amazing.
Snuff, the one I just finished, is the darkest Discworld book I've read so far.
That sounds like my cup of tea.
Nice. It was the darkest Discworld book I'd read so far. Snuff wasn't funny. It was, it has the clever stuff that Pratchett is. but it wasn't funny. But I was just like, oh my gosh, why is this book so freaking dark, Pratchett? Pratchett, as he aged, he got kind of more angry at the problems
I'm just
in the
curious,
world.
like, because I mean, I often think about like Good Omens and like Neil Gaiman just generally being kind of darker, and how like when you have them together in Good Omens, you get some. I just attribute, obviously, I don't know, but I attribute the more dark elements to Neil Gaiman and the more whimsical, funny things to Terry Pratchett.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm wondering, like, where in his life / like his bibliography did Good Omens happen? Like, was he in dark Terry mode when he wrote Good Omens?
Right? I think Good Omens was in 2000, 2001.
Well, that's interesting. So this was 1996.
Yeah. Which Hogfather was?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Guards was like, what, 89, 90, 91 or something like that? I don't know when Good Omens came out. No. Good Omens was Neil Gaiman's first book. It's 1990. So this was early.
Wow.
This was definitely still like...
So I was correct to attribute Happy Whimsy to Pratchett.
At least at that point. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, but like seriously, like that, like it goes like this, and like I finished the City Watch, and I was just like, I was emotional. One, because it's been the first Discworld book in forever, and two, I love Vimes and just the end of the story. But it was good, but it was not pleasant. So yeah, and so yeah, I mean that's Pratchett. It's just like Color of Magic and Light Fantastic. I don't even like, and I love Pratchett, but he hadn't really kind of found his footing. We first see Pratchett really kind of finding it in Mort, book 5, and then Guards in book 8. I think it's Guards. That's really the first book that really kind of feels like what Pratchett books eventually became, like the proto one. And the earlier ones are much funnier, in my opinion. They are much funnier, but then they start being about these bigger ideas, and then they kind of get a little darker. And like from what I hear, one of the We Free Men books, She Shall Wear Midnight, begins with something that is just like in place in a grimdark book. And I've heard about it. Like,
you yelled at me for that. You yelled at me for the fact that the only Pratchett books, or the only Discworld books I had other than Hogfather, were the We Free Men books. But that sounds like I made the right choice.
I haven't read them yet. I mean, they're his YA series, but I have not read them yet. I've only read the first 2, so I'm working my way back to those. But yeah, and so Hogfather, I think, has a lot, like, it talks a lot about belief and the power of belief, which I really like. I like that stuff in my fantasy books. I don't know if this began that or that came first, who knows, but it talks about belief and things like that while still being really funny. The fact that
also like one of my favorite
N-word is hilarious.
One of my favorite types of humor just in general is taking things so literally that it's ridiculous. And so that's one of my favorite things about Hogfather. And Discworld in general does that, but like I feel in Hogfather, like the literalization of many things.
But the computer,
Hex, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was very entertaining.
Yeah, Hex. I forget what book Hex comes in first. It's one of the wizard books.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's Ponder Stibbons. He's the only wizard that isn't out of his office gourd. He's the only one that is not incompetent,
Hex is like a big part of this book, I feel like.
Yeah, the wizards are for this being a death book, the wizards are huge in this one. They're pretty big in Reaper Man, too. There's a big crossover between the wizards in those two. But I think the death books intersect the other books more than really any of the other sub-series. Because Nobby and Colin are in this one, too, at the toy shop, aren't they?
Yeah, briefly.
Yeah,
I mean,
not
not
toy shop.
They just aren't as big a part of it. But Hex and the wizards are pretty significant.
And the bathroom, the bloody stupid bathroom plot, which I was also like, what? And also,
which you never really even find out what exactly the issue was with it in the first place.
Fucking bloody stupid Johnson. When I was in high school, I didn't know what a verruca gnome was. I didn't realize that verruca is British for wart. It's the Latin word for wart.
Well, one of the kids in Willy Wonka.
I did not know that either. Yeah, that's what I kept thinking of. That was all I knew. Okay,
which makes sense. But yeah, I didn't know like that. It was.
I didn't know that either. Oh, that makes a lot more sense. I was like, what is this?
Well, I mean, that's the old like urban legend of if you go barefoot in a shower, like that's one of the ways that you can get warts. And he's like, because the verruca gnome comes and brings them to you.
Okay.
And-
This all makes so much more sense now. I
Yeah.
was always like, I feel like I'm missing something there.
I did too. Like reading Pratchett for the first time, going through all these books and not understanding how British, like a ton of this crap is. I'm like, I don't know what this is. It's just like, I read Fanny Adams. That's a reference that's still so British. It's not in this book. It's in one of the other ones. I literally had to look it up because I'm like, what is Sweet Fanny Adams? And it literally means nothing. So, but I'm like, that's too British for me. And I'm the most British person I know. It's true.
Oh, no.
No actual British booktubers, but okay.
They don't know anything about being British. I ask them all the time.
That's so funny.
Let's go out and slay them. Albert, that was a pun or play on words. Ha, ha, ha. I think it's ho, 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 master. Ho, ho, ho.
I don't actually have to watch the adaptation. Alan will
so
do a
good.
3-hour
I love this book.
reenactment.
I'm gonna have to watch the adaptation
love
at some
this
point.
book.
Yeah, no, this was really fun. I also liked that it talks about the socioeconomics of the holidays because that's that's a real thing that there are children who get lots of very expensive gifts and children who get very little. And
Well, it's like the thing of like, I mean, I already like humor that takes things very literally. And then Christmas is one of those holidays that like, if you stop and think about a single part of it, it makes zero sense. So if that's the holiday you're picking to make everything literal, and we're going to pick apart how literally this is supposed to all go down, and we're not going to gloss over it, we're going to delve. Like, this just ripe for comedy.
yeah. Yeah.
And Pratchett like talks about he like Pratchett's a class warrior. Like the socioeconomic stuff, that's all over. Like Vimes is the ultimate class warrior. In the watch books after
If I
Dark
had
Stars.
any,
Same thing.
like, if I was at all confused about why Alan likes Terry Pratchett, I think I would have just now figured it out.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's true. Like I've seen recently online where it's like if you're getting your kids like something expensive for Christmas, label it as from mom and dad, and then label like the smaller stuff from Santa. That way, when they're going like, "Hey, Santa gave me a freaking PlayStation 5, and he gave you a rock." Santa hates you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
which I understand, but I never thought about that when I was younger.
So
I mean, my brother and I thought about it a lot because, like, my parents literally the only things from Santa where it could physically fit in a stocking. And so like it was like gum and a ruler and like all those like things you get from like basically from like Cost Plus World Market. That's, you know, like it's Shakespeare mints that have, it's like a punny tin of mints and like it's like cute stuff.
Or play on words.
Exactly. And I mean, one year I had like a complete crisis because I got Santa's Coal gum. So it was like this little like clever packet of like this like little red sachet that has like these little
I remember
of, like,
that
candy covered gum. It's like, you know,
those.
black, so it looks kind of like coal. And I was like, is this like a warning? Like, you know, it's gum this time, but you were borderline. And I didn't tell my parents I was worried about that. I just took it and was like, message received.
I got candy cigarettes.
That's so funny.
I told my mom years later, she's like, oh my God, I had no idea that you were mad about it.
I mean, that was a very logical conclusion though, Leanna. Yeah, so I didn't grow up with Santa. My parents were like, we're going to tell you about the story of the real Saint Nicholas and we give you all the things. So we ended up doing it in our family just because our kids were excited about it. Although I think my 7-year-old now is like questioning some stuff. But the way we've done it is Santa does one thing. Everything else is from parents and grandparents. Like you get one, you can ask Santa for one thing. That's it.
Oh, yeah, there was no asking for things from Santa. Santa was giving you junk from Cost Plus World Market.
I really like Susan in this book.
I love Susan so much.
Again, first time reading this, I had no idea, like, you know, like when you start at Mort, you see Mort and Death's daughter, Isabel, you know, get together. And then they have Susan, whose last name is Stohilet because Mort is the Duke of Stohilet. And so you see Mort in the first book. No one's in Reaper Man except Death. And then in soul music, Susan has her first book, and then Hogfather, she's here too. But I had no idea. Like they mentioned some backstory things, and I'm like, I don't know what any of that is.
I like her. She's fun.
I love Susan. Susan's
Don't get scared. Get angry.
Yeah, and she's played by Lady Mary from Downton Abbey.
Yeah, Michelle Dockery
in the adaptation. She does a great job.
I need to watch the adaptation. She would be good at that.
I mean, I will warn you, Bethany, I think it's 3 hours. So when my mom complains about being on,
why would she complain?
It's fine. I'll watch it. I'll watch it in shifts.
It's a 400-page book. You want a 1-hour adaptation? They keep in the bath crap with Ridcully.
They really do pretty much keep in everything. Like it's one of the most faithful adaptations of anything that I've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, it's really good.
I'll have to either block out a lot of time or watch it in.
Well, I was gonna say it originally aired on television, so it's broken up.
Okay, well that works.
I think it's in 2 parts. I think there's part 1, which is an hour and a half. So it's just.
Oh yeah, that I can do.
You can watch part 2.
I'm just very I watch so little. People wonder how I read as much as I do. It's because I watch very little television.
Yeah, I just started watching the show You, which I've discovered is a really difficult show to talk about in text conversations, saying I'm obsessed with you, or
you put it all caps.
It's time for you, or
put it all caps. Oh, I need to comment just in case anybody was listening and misunderstood what I said about how the Raven doesn't want to say the N-word. The N-word being nevermore, because his name is Quoth. And guys, this is the first Pratchett pun that I remember remembering. And I thought that was both the bee's knees and the cat's pajamas simultaneously. The fact that the Raven's name is Quoth and he refuses to say nevermore.
I wonder if, because I've read a lot more Gaiman and I read Gaiman first. I wonder if that was a nod to Pratchett when Gaiman wrote in American Gods, when there's a raven that's following him around and Shadow asks him to say nevermore.
Yes.
And he says, fuck you.
It is a nod to Pratchett. I remember that because I've read American Gods. I do remember that.
Because I had no context for that being a reference. I just by itself, I was like,
yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, there's little things that one thing that took me a minute to figure out. And then once I did, I was like, oh, that's kind of funny, is when they were talking about Hex. Because for anybody listening, Hex is they literalize a computer. So Hex has a mouse.
For anyone listening, we haven't explained what Hogfather is at all.
Yeah. We probably should. We should do that. We should. That's true. The plot. We can do that.
No.
But briefly with Hex, one of the things is there's a line where they're like, yeah, we don't really understand how Hex works, why he needs all these small religious paintings or something. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, icons. Okay, got it.
Absolutely. Bethany, you have just added to my understanding. Last time I read Hogfather, I did not get that.
Really?
That is amazing. That is amazing. Yes. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's been 15 years since I read Hogfather, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Hogfather is about, so in Discworld, they have Hog's Watch instead of Christmas. And the Hogfather is this big anthropomorphized boar who wears a Santa suit and goes and brings food and presents to kids.
He is Saint Nick. He just has the face of a pig.
Yeah, and he has been kidnapped by this crazy assassin named Teatime. Who it's spelled tea time, but it's not pronounced that way. And he's insane. He's got one eye that's like glass or something. He's been hired by the auditors. So the auditors of reality are in the death books. They hate abstract concepts. They think that everything should follow logic and a set of rules, and they're these just capes that float in the air and complain.
They are an abstract concept, which is ironic.
And I know.
Yeah.
And so they hire him to essentially kill the Hogfather. And so Tea Time gets a group of bandits and they kidnap the Hogfather. And the problem is when they do, there's all this extra, I think there's just extra belief floating around. And so because of that, all of these other concepts start popping up, like the god of hangovers.
Because apparently belief is what fuels the existence of Hogfather. So if he's not around to be receiving the belief, then there's just extra spillage, like an oil spill of belief.
Right.
But belief is also apparently what makes the sun come up the next day. So without belief in the Hogfather, like the world's going to end. So Death, who is already has faced the auditors in Reaper Man, Death is like, all right, guys, suck it. Because again, if you've read up to the Death books, Death, he just wants to do something else. He just wants to do something that isn't where people hate him. And he has this job. Everyone waits for him. They're so excited. It's going to be the Hogfather. He's like, I can do that. I will be the Hogfather.
So he puts like a cushion under his clothes.
So he takes over it, and the pillow falls out. It's like a couch cushion. It falls out. And so he's watching Death try to learn how to be the freaking Hogfather is so funny. And he's got Albert, who is Albert is an evil wizard who got trapped. You know, he's got like 3 hours left to live in the real world or whatever. So he has to stay near Death. And he's just this butler, and he dressed like an elf, and he's got this drippy nose and this half like rolled up cigarette in the corner of his mouth, and glasses and his spectacles.
And drinking all of the wine that's left for the Hogfather.
Yeah.
Eating all of
the sherry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just so funny because Death is trying his best. Meanwhile, Susan is trying to find the Hogfather.
Who is Susan for those listening?
Susan is Death's granddaughter.
Yeah, Death's granddaughter.
And the best governess that you could ever wish for.
She's great.
Yeah, she knows that the monsters under your bed actually exist, so she takes a fire poker and just beats them to death. And it's like, get out.
It's great.
Don't get scared. Get angry.
She is fantastic.
She's a great character. Yeah, so it's kind of a wild ride, but I like that it's got these bigger themes that it's exploring, and it's funny, and yeah, I liked it. I know you mentioned the oh god of hangovers, which that was funny too, because it's like not just the god of hangovers, but the oh god.
Oh my gosh, I hate him. Yeah, like all of these things start coming up. They talk about, like we talked about at the beginning, the Veruca gnome, which is the little gnome. It's a little gnome that brings warts, and that's how you get them. It's like anytime you attribute, like, oh, well, this happened. Like for example, like the gremlins. This isn't in here, but the gremlins that tangle up your freaking cables, right? If you said that, you hear a tinkling of tiny bells, and then that thing appears, and that's happening all over the Discworld while the Hogfather is kidnapped.
Yeah. There's also just like so many random little looks at things happening around the city on this evening. And Death kind of mucks things up because he wants things to be more fair.
Yeah, he's trying.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the hog or the Death came in and decided to like redistribute the wealth of the Hogfather's holiday.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like there's the whole like subplot where he takes all the food from a fancy restaurant and gives it to these homeless guys, and then takes their boots and mud and gives it to the restaurant. So the restaurant finds ways to make like fancy food out of boots and mud and like use French words to like sell it to their customers.
I forgot about that. That's fantastic. Like he's got the Christmas letters that are written to Santa. It's like, I see the girl writes in green crayon on pink paper with a mouse in the corner. The mouse is wearing a dress. He's just pointing it out like, look at this thing that I've gotten. Death is so excited.
Well, just also be like the way that like the kids asking him for stuff is like, well, this is the contractual arrangement where you ask for a thing and then I give it to you.
Yeah. And he's like, is she naughty or nice? Right. You know, he's so happy to be part of something. Like Death also has this kind of childlike wonderment with the holiday as he tries to figure it out. He, by the end, is having a blast going, ho, ho, ho. Just riding around saying ho, ho, ho. So fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is why it's compared to Nightmare Before Christmas, because you have a skeleton in Santa's suit replacing Santa.
Yeah.
And doing it with good intentions.
Yeah. Yes. The whole thing, because they do sort of kill the Hogfather, but can't totally kill him.
Yeah.
And like the way that whole plot wraps up is interesting because a lot of it is getting into like the pagan origins of holidays. Yeah, it's just fascinating that like these old gods turning into something new, like doing something new.
Well,
in
again, I mean,
modernity.
it reminds me of American Gods, which is why, I mean, it's no accident that they are friends and whatever. That, I mean, that's what American Gods is all about gods reinventing themselves because they're fueled by belief. And like, well, people believe something else now, so adapt or die.
And Pratchett was a brilliant man. Like his command of the English language, picking the right word at the right time, no matter what, and forming all these things without, doesn't have to set up a joke. It's just there, and you see it or you don't. It's not important to the story whether you got it or not. But he knows so much about so many things, and having read most of the Discworld bibliographies, like there's so many references or so many of these deeper, richer, more historical things that he is playing off of that, you know, when you read it, you may not know. When I first read it, I didn't know anything about, you know, all those pagan origins of the things. I was just like, oh, there's a big board that these dogs are chasing, and, you know, Death has to, or Susan has to stop them from killing the Hogfather. But the fact that Death was keeping the belief alive is why he doesn't die. Because, you know, Death, people thought the Hogfather's real because Death is still doing the job. But all of that stuff in the background, the echoes of the past, and, you know, because it's very tonally jarring. It's tonally dissonant when compared to, you know, kind of the happy-go-lucky stuff that's happening there. And then you've got this really stark, dark, like, before there was man, there were the old gods kind of feeling.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, he's just really good at blending those two things when he like really starts hitting his stride with this kind of stuff.
Well, actually, I mean, I think that so this comes up both in terms of guards and in terms of the Magnus Chase book that we just read last month, where like I talked about how like I like when you have darkness juxtaposed with light, when you have tragedy juxtaposed with humor, because it makes the tragedy more tragic and the humor more funny. And that's why I like Shakespeare, because he's always blending the two. So like, I mean, Magnus Chase was just all jokes all the time, so I didn't find it funny. And Guards was kind of all jokes all the time, so I was just like, okay, like this is the jokes, but like I don't have anything here to like sink my teeth into. Whereas Hogfather has enough of like this talk about belief and about the old gods, but you also have like insane whimsical absurdity. But like it's more absurd and more funny because it's juxtaposed with the darker stuff. Yeah,
and it's nearly impossible for me to separate Guards from the rest of the Watch canon, because I know what comes after it. And Guards is what begins that reinvention of Samuel Vimes and the Watch. So I know what it becomes. So I'm 100% certain. I am unable to make an objective judgment about Guards anymore. I can't, because it's so tied in to Samuel Vimes, who is probably my favorite character in all of fantasy. And so even though, I mean, Guards, like I can name kind of the thematic stuff for all of the 7 that come after it, with the exception of Guards. Because I mean, there's not a ton of thematic stuff. It's just it's a funny take on the secret society, the film noir genre, and, you know, dragons. And it's very funny. It's very funny. It's the funniest of his early novels by far.
Yeah, I think I'm like similarly to Leanna. That was the thing with me with Guards is that reading it all at once, I was like, I found it very funny at the beginning, and then later on I was like, okay, I can see that this is funny, but I'm just like, I do find it exhausting to read lengthy books that are just funny.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
I often found myself thinking that like if you did a half-an-hour sitcom that was like based on Guards,
it would be
like,
hilarious.
You'd have these snippets of it and like, oh, that's funny. But like if you had, because like I love the show The Upstart Crow, which is like a sitcom about Shakespeare, but it's like 20-minute episodes. But like if that was like stretched into like novel length, or they're in like a 2 or 3 hour
like a full movie,
I'd be like, I'm exhausted. No, this is too much.
Well, and that's how I felt about like I watched the movie version of What We Do in the Shadows, and that was how I felt about that, where I was like, okay, this is funny, but it's getting old. Like there's nothing else.
I saw on Broadway a show called The Play That Goes Wrong, and it is to this day the funniest thing I've ever witnessed in my entire life. I could not stop laughing, but it dragged on about 30 minutes too long. About half an hour before the end, I was like, this is still funny, but I mean, I can't really laugh anymore. Like, this has been non-stop sight gags, line gags, like just not like non-stop.
Is that similar to the Goes Wrong show?
Yes, it's the play upon which the show was based. Now, the 20-minute episodes, like,
perfect length.
Exactly. And the show, again, the actual play is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But by the end, I'm like, this has got to be over. It's still the funniest thing I've ever seen, but I'm tired. So we got to move on.
Yeah. This is great because it does a good job of blending like the humor with the bigger ideas and stuff. So I
like a story that also you kind of care about. It's not just like a story to have the excuse for jokes all the time. Like there's an actual story there that you want to see resolved. Like you want to see the Hogfather come back and death, needs to, this is temporary, obviously. Like we need to fix this. Like you're actually invested in seeing it fixed.
Leanna, you should read Weird Sisters, which is literally Macbeth.
I think I have that one.
Yeah, it's Macbeth, but like it's literally Pratchett doing Macbeth.
That sounds
really
great.
Good. It's really good. Weird
It can't be worse than Joe Nesbo doing Macbeth, which was one of the worst things I've ever read in my entire life.
I don't even understand what that means.
He did.
It sounds terrible.
The Hogarth Shakespeares were like, authors being like commissioned to retell Shakespeare. And most of them gave them new titles. But Joe Nesbo wrote a book called Macbeth. So super creative. And it's this long. And it's like Shakespeare's shortest play. And I was like, sir, I don't think you understand what Macbeth is about. And this isn't it. And this is too long.
He's like a Scandinavian or something thriller author, I want to say. Yeah. Yeah, I do want to read more of these. Like, I think so. The only other one I currently own because it went on sale in this edition is Equal Rights because I feel like I would be into that.
So,
let's see.
Alan's a fan.
Equal Rights is book 3. Equal Rights is. It
was on sale for a reason.
It is better than Color of Magic and Light Fantastic, and it does introduce Granny Weatherwax. So when you read Equal Rights, I think you will like the character of Granny Weatherwax. She's awesome. She is a really excellent character. She's like, she's just a take on the Wicked Witch, but she's not. And she doesn't even like to use magic. She just like glares at people and uses kind of like reverse psychology on people. And, she's just no nonsense. So I love Granny Weatherwax. But Equal Rights, again, doesn't really feel like one of the later Pratchett books. So it's a lot more like playing on fantasy tropes. So it feels more like a fantasy book.
Okay.
But I like Equal Rights better than the first two, for sure. For sure. And I like it better than Sorcery, which is later. Like, a witch book, any witch book is better than frickin' Rincewind. I hate Rincewind so much. I don't like him at all. But that's the first one. Weird Sisters is the second witch book. I just ripped my book. I just accidentally tore the cover. It's a dry from being musty.
I think that means it's time for you to acquire this edition.
It's expensive, and I have this mass market paperback. Do you know how beautiful this is? I got like marks in the margin where I wrote
"ha ha." This has a ribbon bookmark.
That's nice.
It's very
Show me
nice.
What the inside looks like. What does the words look like? I can't see that. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it is very nice. It's very nice quality.
Ha ha in locations.
No, these are they're very nice editions and
they are actually really nice.
Comfortable.
Like, one day I plan on collecting all of those.
I have a bunch on my wish list and I'm just kind of like keeping an eye on them, and if they go on sale, like Equal Rights went on sale, so
any book cover with an optical illusion is going to be a winner.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Jessie was saying she has like on a shopping app, and she's notified whenever one goes on sale.
Smart. Yeah. Yeah, because they are a little pricey, but they're very nice. I actually, it's funny because I know you said you read this because somebody told you to in high school. Mm-hmm. I have a friend who I'm pretty sure told me I should read it in high school, and I was like, yeah, that cover is ugly. I'm not reading it.
Look at it. It's hideous. That's why I didn't want to read it, but then they told me what it was about, and I'm like, that sounds good. I'll read that.
Yeah.
It looks like a melting peppermint. What's not to like?
It's Christmas. It's candy cane. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I don't know what they were doing. Like the American covers are Not good.
Oh, HarperCollins. I like them. I like them better than the current American covers. The current American covers are the skinny, crappy paperbacks that are just terrible. They're all like they're not as wide as the normal paperbacks, and they're taller. So and the spines are like, freaking vacuum sealed. They're just terrible. So I love these old MMPBs. I used to have them all in this format, and then an ex-girlfriend was reading them and then didn't give them back to me. And I was like, can you bring back my books, please? No. What a trollop.
Seriously.
Don't take my book.
Like give people their books back. Yeah. I've kind of stopped lending out very many books because there's so many I've just
I
never
literally just
back.
like buy the book for someone instead. I'm like, can I borrow it? I'm like, I will buy it for you.
I will buy you a copy.
That's how you do it. Yeah, if you guys want to read this more Discworld, like again, like the back half of the discography or the bibliography is, like once really after Guards is really he starts just developing his style and gets more of those heavier thematic elements, and I love them. I just finished. I'm going to start. I don't know what I'm going to start next, but I'm trying to work my way back through and hit the books that I didn't read because I stopped reading for like 10 years, and some point when I stopped reading, he was still alive and writing books, and so I just haven't read any of those that he produced when I wasn't reading anything.
But so would we say Hogfather is a family book and a family movie?
I think it is. Yeah. My wife doesn't. If it was like violent or scary or something, my wife wouldn't have watched it. She watched it and loved it.
I mean, not even necessarily that it's too scary, but I mean, I just think like, would kids just find it boring because most of it would go over their heads?
That's a good point.
Yeah,
maybe young children would like.
And because I'm just thinking about like the movie, like would this be a movie that you watch every year with your family? Like I feel like as a kid, like you just be like, it's kind of like the visual of it, the spectacle of the adaptation would be entertaining to you at first, but then it's 3 hours. So you'd be like, well, I'm bored now.
Well, I don't think younger kids like Nightmare Before Christmas either. I
wasn't allowed to watch it when I was little, so I have no idea how it
when it came out in 93, I went and saw it, and I was just like, this movie sucked. I thought I was seeing a Disney movie. I was like, I hate this.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. I didn't like it either.
I was a lot older when I saw it.
How does explain to me? Jack Skellington says in the same song, there's white things in the air, and then in the next verse says there's children throwing snowballs. What is it, Jack? Do you know what snow is or not?
Like, okay, so this year, my brother and I hadn't watched Nightmare Before Christmas in like literally years because like we had gotten sick of it because like, there was a period where we watched it all the time and we were just like tired of it. So now it was so long since we'd seen it. So on Halloween, we watched Nightmare Before Christmas. And the whole time during all the songs and all the lyrics, he and I were like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Wait, why would he know what that means? Like, why does he know what that's called? Why would he say that like the whole time?
Which is it, Jack? Do you know what snow is? Yay or nay?
I mean, so many things fall apart if you look at them too closely.
That's true.
Like, let's be real.
Don't tug on the thread of the sweater. Don't do it.
Yeah. Overall, it was fun. I do want to read more Discworld books. I feel like
we managed not to talk about at all the Tooth Fairy situation that is in Hogfather.
Oh yeah,
we didn't talk about that at all.
So you have the Hogfather plot, which is fun, death, but then you have like the really serious, like almost spooky plot in the Tooth Fairy's palace, where like the power of children's teeth, the teeth that they lose, can actually has power, and it's all and people start, and the bandits, like they start being faced with the things that they're most afraid of, and the thing that Banjo fears the most, the things that Davy fears the most is his mom, because their mom used to beat them and stuff, so he starts seeing his mom and everything.
Yeah, so I think this answered my original question. It's not for children.
No, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I always
it's kind of and there's the whole thing of that they like put the teeth in a magic circle to try to like control the children with their teeth that they lost, which is also creepy. Yeah, it's like a little mini horror plot in the middle of this.
Yeah, that's the little tea time thing. And
I was saying almost anything to do with Tia Timey is a horror plot.
Yeah, I know.
He's creepy.
And then, like freaking everyone dies. Like everyone in that Tooth Fairy castle just bites it. It's Oh man, it is.
But because it's a children's castle, they just disappear.
Yeah.
Like
And
you
then
don't see them die, which I thought was funny.
And then, but then I think their body reappears
somewhere
in
else
in the real world. Like they
Yeah.
disappear because they're in this kind of magical, fairy zone.
Yeah.
And then they.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Go read it.
It is. It's good. There's a lot happening. It sounds weird, but it's fun. So yeah. At some point I'll read more books. I feel like I need breaks in between. Like this was a good span of. Well, I'm trying to think. Like when did I read?
A Terry Pratchett book is a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose. He just is throwing so much at you.
Like I don't feel like I could read these books back to back.
I did that again when I worked through them. The only thing I read was Pratchett. I read, like, I think he had like maybe 30 books out at the time, maybe 26 or something. That's the only thing I read till I was done. I only read Discworld. And this is why when I talk about, like, I think Pratchett is like the author that changed my life the most, because I think so much of what I find funny today, like so much of my sense of humor was forged in the fire of Discworld, just because that's all I read. That's all I read. It's all I talked about. I read, like, when I started dating, I was like, y'all should read this, and they would read them, and then
you just approached every new person like a Jehovah's Witness, except with Sir Terry Pratchett. How you heard the good news of Discworld,
and then the next girlfriend, I'm like, hey, have you read this? And then you find out long after y'all aren't together anymore, they still talk about Discworld all the time. I'm like, you're welcome. You're welcome. Stop losing my books.
Well, I talk about it because they still have your books.
Yeah, one of them does. But yeah, I mean, they're like, I think sometimes Discworld can be overhyped in people
by people like Alan.
I mean, if anybody who's taking advice from me, like, that doesn't know that I am overly excited about things, Leanna, like, I think people just expect more from them than they're going to get. Like, I find them funny, and I laughed. I guess I laughed out loud a couple times, like the first time I read a few of them, but I don't laugh out loud really when I read all of them. I just think they're really clever, and I like that. And sometimes the climaxes.
Most books that I think are funny, because my sense of humor, it's rarely something that I'm actually laughing at.
Yeah. So I like, they are fun to read. You just gotta understand what they are. Okay, you're gonna get a lot of clever wordplay. There's gonna be, jokes, pop culture references in there, and then there's gonna be a plot that deals with some kind of theme, and those are hit or miss. There's some Discworld books I hate. I don't like moving pictures. It deals with movies, like the invention of the moving picture. I don't like it. I think it's boring. I hate it. Eric is a retelling of Faust. I hate it. Pyramids is the worst one by far. It deals with, like, aliens and the power of the triangle shape. Aliens coming down and making I don't know what happens in that book at all. I gave it 1 star, and I don't give this. It's Discworld, and I gave it 1 star. I hate Pyramids.
Oh wow!
It's his 9th book. It's the one he wrote after Guards. He wasted all the good on Vimes, and then
I was gonna say, it sounds almost like Terry Pratchett's version of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh yes, but so there are Discworld books that I don't. That I don't particularly love. And then there's ones that I like more than others. Like Soul Music is a good book, but I don't like music, really. And I don't listen to rock and roll. And that's where most of the...
who reenact musicals all the time in your Insta stories?
He's not riffing on musicals. He's riffing on rock and roll. I mean music, not music from plays. And so, like, I don't like that one as much as people who are really into classic rock. Those people love soul music. It's their favorite. My buddy.
They probably also like Kings of the Wild.
I guarantee you he would if it had been out. My buddy in high school wore a leather jacket with a wallet chain in his bus pass, had his guitar all the time. He loved soul music. It was his favorite of the Death books, like, far and away, because he just, he liked all the music references. I like The City Watch because I like class warfare, and Samuel Vimes is a concept of there must be a policeman for kings.
Yeah.
And the law applies to everybody equally, or it's not justice, it's tyranny. Like, those things speak to me. And so I'm just like, Vimes, let's see, what do we got next? Get him, Vimes. Yeah, arrest him. So there is
Yeah.
something for everybody in
Yeah.
Pratchett. I do think.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, you're good. It's
I
good.
literally could talk about Discworld. Man,
This is why we brought you on for the episode.
I just want to go read this. Like, I got other stuff to read, but I just want to read Hogfather.
I mean, you can.
I can't. I have to. Freaking people told me I have to read stuff.
Sorry, I get it.
Well, you should tell them what I tell everybody all the time. Don't tell me what to do.
Leanna, you're what's wrong with this country.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to move on to On My Radar, where I'll share recent or upcoming book releases in sci-fi, fantasy, and romance that I'm excited about. Books for today's episode will be released between December 7th and December 20th, 2021. I don't know if Leanna and Alan have anything. Doesn't have to be in that time frame, but if there's any.
Oh, okay.
The ones that I'm talking about are in that time frame. But like,
really? Who's releasing a book the last 2 weeks of the year?
I have
What are yours?
2 books on the list, which is short. So there's only 2. But
Only 2?
Only 2.
I can't think of one that was released in the last 3 months.
This is because you don't read that many new releases.
That's true.
I mean,
that's true. What are your 2?
Okay, so the first one is The Righteous by Renee Audier. This is the 3rd book in the Beautiful series. It's
I love that was a duology.
What?
I thought that was a duology. I thought it was done.
No, it's not. In fact,
I haven't read them. I just thought.
Yeah, no. I think there's going to be at least 4 books in the series because it's not done yet. They're really good. I've read it already. I really liked it a lot. So it's YA historical paranormal. So it's set in 1800s New Orleans, and book 1 is like a murder mystery story that sort of introduces vampires, and then later on you also get like the Fae and stuff. It's got a more diverse cast of characters.
Bethany,
I love them.
With every really subsequent breath, you name another thing that I hate. That's like 8 things in that book that I don't like.
Alan, I was not recommending it to you. I'm recommending it to some of the listeners who do like these things.
Oh, you said YA? I'm like, no. Paranormal? No. Like romance? No. Historical fiction? I'm like, okay. But then you're like, New Orleans? No. Vampires?
Wait a minute. What's wrong with New Orleans? That sounds like a wonderful setting. Everything else about it sounds like it's...
That's what's wrong in New Orleans. It's a swamp. And there's too many mosquitoes.
Look,
you don't actually have to be in New Orleans to read about New Orleans. You get to enjoy the ambiance without the mosquitoes when you read a book about it.
What ambiance?
There's so much ambiance. Oh my goodness. See, this is why I need Izzy when talking about this, because she'd be excited about this.
Vampire? Didn't they do that? Wasn't it called True Blood? Didn't they do vampires?
An interview with a vampire. Do you not like that?
No. Who likes Interview with a Vampire?
Many people.
That's true.
That's not me.
Well, for those of you listeners who do like paranormal romance and vampires and fae, you should definitely go read The Righteous. I read it and it was great. It also has a fake engagement plot, which I'm into. So it's fun.
What? You're into people pretending like they like someone and then hurting their feelings?
No. Okay, look, no. The way a fake engagement trope goes, Alan, is 2 people decide to pretend they're engaged for some reason. Why? And while they're pretending, well, there are different reasons. Like, it might be like...
I can't think of a single situation where I'd need to do that.
It might be
because historical time period, so it might be a historical reason.
Well, in this case, it has to do with the Fae and safety. But I've read some where it's like, over the holidays because they don't want their family to get on them about being single or whatever. Anyway, the point is, so they have a fake, they like fake it, but then in the process, they end up actually falling for each other. It's great. It's fun.
You can't just pretend to be dating someone. You got to go like...
Well, okay. So the fake engagement is usually for like more historical stuff.
Oh, yeah. Because I guess they didn't just date around like, hey,
I mean,
we're just talking.
Like in the 1800s, they didn't really... they didn't have Tinder.
I wish we didn't have Tinder now.
Tinder did not exist back when I was dating, so like I don't really.
Either. And man, Tinder.
Yep. The other book that is coming out, both of these are coming out December 7th, by the way, but the other one is A History of Wild Places by Shea Earnshaw. And this one looks pretty interesting.
That's my book of the month.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's a book of the month book. So she had written a couple of like YA witchy books. I DNF'd one of them, but they were very atmospherical. So this is her first adult book, and it's a fantasy mystery blend, from what I understand, where there's like a guy who is supposedly really good at finding people, maybe semi-magically, and there's this woman who had been an author of like macabre children's books who had gone missing, and he goes looking for her and happens upon this weird town where nobody's allowed in or out, and then he goes missing too, and then years later like stuff starts surfacing. I don't know, it's like small town secrets and a weird author. It sounds interesting. So
You haven't convinced Alan.
I'm not subscribed to Book of the Month for a reason. Like, I've literally, on everyone's videos where they talk about it, I've not seen one book that I was like, oh, you know what? I would read that.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be subscribed to it if they didn't let you skip.
I like that they let you skip.
Like, nah, I don't want any of those. So
yeah, I think this year I've skipped like 3 times where I'm like, I don't need any of those.
I would skip 12 times.
Which is why you're not subscribed.
The purpose. I'm just why don't y'all Book of the Month something that I want to read, Book of the Month, and they say no. So Hogfather, Book of the Month, Book of the Year. Starting the Book of the Year club.
Yeah. Anybody have any upcoming releases you're excited about? It could be later than December, but
I don't know when it's coming out, but R.F. Kuang's Dark Academia Babel.
Yes.
August.
Sometime next year. Yeah,
August.
It's like late next year, but I am excited about that.
Oh, and Christopher Rocchio's new Sun Eater book comes out in March. That's sooner. So in March, Kingdoms of Death comes out. It was originally going to be the 4th book, and it is still the 4th book, but Kingdoms of Death has been split into 2 parts. So we're actually getting 2 Sun Eater books next year. So if part 1, or like what is now part 1, I guess, is in March, and then I think like in August or September we'll get what is now the 5th book. That is essentially what would have been the second half of that one.
Cool. This has been Chapter 3 Podcast, and we're your hosts, Bethany and Liene. You can find Alan and our YouTube channels in the show notes or in the video description if you're watching us on YouTube. And you can follow Chapter 3 Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can also find us on YouTube or wherever you like to download your podcasts.
Why is it Chapter 3?
Okay, so
I asked Bethany this too.
I think I talked about this in like one episode where someone asked me this. So I knew I wanted to talk about sci-fi, fantasy, and romance. I wanted something that would be like bookish, but like cross genre. So it's pulled from a line in a song from Beauty and the Beast.
That's literally what I was going to ask.
Yes, yeah.
And also, hold on. What book reveals the twist in the 3rd chapter? Like,
it's a short. Maybe it's a novella.
No, but there are also some really long books that only have like 5 chapters because each chapter is like 100 pages.
I mean, I guess. I think Mencken and Ashman just needed a freaking rhyme.
That's probably true. But now we have a podcast.
I mean, in fairness, Chapter 3 makes more sense in that song than Snowballs does in Nightmare Before Christmas.
That's true, because at least Belle knows what a book is, and then it's not like, what is this? And again,
like Chapter 3 could... It's unlikely, but could be one of those books where it's just long chapters. So like it's possible. But the Snowballs thing,
I guess. That's cool. I was going to ask that.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, no, so that's where it comes from. So there you go. You can follow us in all of those places. The next episode is going to be available in 2 weeks. I will be back here with Izzy, and we're going to be talking about our picks for the best romances of 2021 and our most anticipated romances for 2022. So make sure you tune in for that. This episode's bonus content will be available to patrons in the next few days. Thanks for listening.